Let's have fun. Let's get it going. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
It's, I know you've been out on the road, and to have you here all the way from Brentwood.
All the way from the west side, yeah.
This is
The traffic was a bitch.
So I got off at Exposition, I took Adams, and then I cut over. It's probably easier getting here from elsewhere. But this is a home game for you. We're so excited for you to be here. Now, we're catching you on about a month break between long stretches on a tour. How many shows have you performed this time around?
Well, we got done with the American part of the tour about 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago. I think it was 82 shows. So, and what happened was it kind of, we ended up doing multiples. We couldn't get away from the Forum, for one, but other cities as well, that there seemed to be a market for us that we did not necessarily expect, and it's a good time for the band.
So you finished 82 shows, you're home for a month, and then you leave for your next leg, which is, I think, Europe, Australia, New Zealand. How many more shows do you have planned, do you know?
I don't know. It could go on forever.
It does amaze me. I mean, the schedule is ridiculous that you played this many shows, and I know you're not home very often, so I did want to at least thank your wife, Kristen, and your children, William, Lily, and Stella, for allowing us to share your time tonight on one of your home nights.
Well, that really is the hardest part. You know, the repetition of doing the shows can get a little surreal after a while, and the downtime can get a little challenging. Stevie really needs a lot of days off for her voice, but the hardest part is being away from the family, for sure. So thank you guys for not only, sanctioning this event, but for some of you even being here. I mean, my God, yeah. They've seen me enough, I think, on stage.
No, it's great. It's great to have your family here as well, because it is sort of about that. For those of you who haven't seen this particular concert on with the show, what makes this Fleetwood Mac tour different than the previous tours that you've had recently?
Well, the obvious thing is the return of Christine McVie. She had taken about a 15-year break, and really, at that time, she was living in LA and burned a lot of bridges. She ended her relationship, she sold her house. I think she even sold her publishing. That's a big no-no. But she moved back to England. She got a house in the country and had a complete, wiping of the slate of her previous life. And I think after a while, she started to, it took something that radical for her to appreciate maybe certain things she'd missed. And so she came back last year, and we welcomed her with open arms. And it's been really kind of profound on a couple of levels. And I think the two things that are so timely right now is the fact that she's here, and she completes that fivesome. It's a very circular time for the band, a very karmic time, if you will, in that if you look at this as perhaps the beginning of a last act, then it's very appropriate for her to be here for that. And then I think you have to also look at the range of audience. You've got, I don't like to do the math, because if you think about people who might have been in their 40s when that first album came out, well, you know what I'm saying. So, but we've got those people, and we've got, everything down to teenagers for whom our body of work seems to be making sense. And, I think it's really the equation takes the element of time to be able to take stock of whether you've done your job properly or whether what you have done has legs. And so that's the other timely thing, is with Christine's return and the completion of that, lineup again is that we're playing to many generations of people, and they all seem to be enjoying it the same, and it's a great time for us.
And you can tell that it is sort of passed down. My students, some of whom didn't know as much about the band, but they all said, "My parents listen, and can I bring my parents to tonight?"
My great grandmother listened to it.
No.
Boy.
Luckily, we're not there yet. It was just my parents. So a lot of parents came out and came with their students. So for newcomers who haven't been to the series before, we'll talk with Lindsey for 50, 60 minutes up here. Given the equipment, maybe he'll toss in a little bit of a song or two, and then we'll open it up to a few. Oh yeah. Then we'll open it up to a few student questions, and then we'll wrap it up. We did start late, and so we're going to go a little bit late, but it's the end of the semester. This is our celebration, so hang out. You'll want to stay till the end. So let's just dive in and talk about your life a little bit. Where did you grow up? How big of a family when you were growing up?
Say again?
Where did you grow up, and how big of a family did you have?
I had two older brothers, and I grew up in Atherton, which is... Wow. You don't hear that very often. You can say Palo Alto is the general area.
Yeah.
And obviously that whole area has been impacted greatly by the Silicon Valley. When I was very little, all of that was like strawberry fields out there and orchards. But that was a great place to grow up. Stanford University being nearby, I think, informed the entire area with a kind of intellectual rigor that gave us an excuse to perhaps look down on Los Angeles slightly, display our snobism, which was not well-founded, as I found out later. But the great thing about having two older brothers, aside from them both being great role models and great comrades in arms, was that my oldest brother, Jeff, was old enough to have the light bulb go off when Elvis Presley showed up on the scene and started bringing home all the great early rock and roll, and that's really what got me started playing guitar. Without Jeff, probably I wouldn't be here, so damn you, Jeff. Yes.
So at what age did you start playing, and what were sort of the early influences that you wanted to emulate?
Well, all of that early stuff was seminal for me. Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard and, the Everly Brothers. And it was all, as far as guitar players go, probably Scotty Moore, who was Elvis's guitarist, who used a pick but also used his fingers, kind of got me into that. And I think I gravitated towards players who tried to work the guitar into the fabric of the song, in service of the song. And that was really my orientation early on, I taught myself to play from listening to records and having a chord book, and it was really all song-oriented from the very beginning. It was about learning chords and learning songs and singing. And so then when the initial wave of rock and roll kind of fell off before the Beatles, there was a folk movement that hit rather large, and of course then the finger picking really takes root, because the Travis pick is sort of the base of what I do on guitar. And I don't use a pick very much. I don't use one at all on stage right now. And it really, but again, the key is that it was all based in the sensibility of songs,
And you mentioned, so self-taught primarily, not lessons?
No lessons to this day, never had a lesson, don't read music, sort of what you might call a refined primitive.
And because you described your playing style so articulately, you could almost imagine it, but I wondered if maybe, perhaps, you could demonstrate your finger-picking style on maybe a selection of Never Going Back Again?
Are you all sensing that there might have been a little bit of talk about this before we?
Right before.
Is it slightly? Yeah. Well, this is a good sort of offshoot of a Travis pick. Let's see here. The one thing we didn't really do was rehearse the music. So, all right. What is it you want me to do?
Never Going Back Again is just the perfect
Some
way
of
to-
it?
As much as you feel comfortable with, of course.
Jeez.
Of course, a minute.
Well, she broke down and let me in. And made me see where I've been. I've been down one time, been down two times. I'm never going back again. You don't know what it means to win. So come down and see me again. Oh yeah. Been down one time, been down two times. I'm never going back again. Yeah. I've been down one time, I've been down two times, I've been down three times. I'm never going back again. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good night. That was. I don't think I was prepared for that. That was so
So far, so good.
Oh. And more than I thought you'd play, so thank you for that.
Well, somebody guilted me into playing the whole song. No. It was actually good.
It was fantastic.
I'm here. I might as well,
I love that attitude. We'll
Yeah.
keep asking. So let's talk early career before we jump into Fleetwood Mac. Let's talk Buckingham Nicks. Of course. When did you meet Stevie Nicks, and tell us about the music of Buckingham Nicks? You guys opened for some really big names.
Well, I met Stevie in Atherton. She transferred into my high school. I was a junior. She was a senior. And we sort of were aware of each other, vaguely aware of each other's musicality, but only in passing. And then she graduated and went to a junior college, and I finished high school. And then at the end of my senior year, I finally, for the first time, got in a band. And over that summer, we talked about finding a singer, and someone suggested Stevie. So the following fall, when I ended up at the same college, one of us asked her to join this band we had, and she did. We were not romantically involved at that time. None of the time that we were in that band, which is called Fritz. We played around the Bay Area from San Francisco down to San Jose for a period of about 4 years. And then at some point when we tried to get a record deal down in Los Angeles and did not succeed, Stevie and I were sort of singled out as perhaps being more interesting or having more potential. And at that point, we thought about perhaps, because neither one of us had really tapped into our own musicality. There was someone else who had written the songs in Fritz, and I had played bass. I hadn't even played guitar. Didn't really play lead guitar at that time, and hadn't started to write songs yet. But we had this goal now because we knew there was some interest in LA, and that sort of drew us together romantically as well. And so we woodshedded up in the Bay Area for a period of about a year and tried to come up with some material, and did, and eventually landed a record deal on Polydor, and that was became the Buckingham Nicks album.
And how old were you guys at the time?
How old?
Yeah, at the time.
Oh, it's at the point I am now, almost any age seems like a kid.
But you're 20, 22? I mean, they're their age, so I'm just trying to put it in context.
Well, I was 20 when Buckingham Nicks came out. I was probably 23.
Yeah, so
She was 24.
And so, at the same time, Fleetwood Mac had success in the UK and Europe, but lost its third guitar player and was fighting for its survival, I think. Mick Fleetwood comes to the States to find a new guitarist and basically keep the band alive. Tell us how you met Mick Fleetwood and the condition you required in order to join his band.
Right. Well, it was a very chance meeting, as a lot of interesting things are. And Stevie and I had sort of had our arc of what was going to happen with the Buckingham Nicks album, which wasn't a lot commercially. And so we happened to be at the legendary Sound City studio out in the valley, which it does not exist anymore. But Dave Grohl did a wonderful documentary on it. We were in the back studio, the small one, working on some new ideas because they gave us free time all the time. There was like a second home for us. And I just wandered into Studio A to see what Keith Olsen, who had, been the engineer on Buckingham Nicks and who had really shepherded us through our early days in Los Angeles, what he was doing in Studio A. And as I walk in, I hear Frozen Love, which is a song from Buckingham Nicks, blasting over the big speakers. And I walk in, and here's this giant, skinny guy just grooving to the song. And I'm going, what is going on here? Didn't know who it was. Song ended. I was introduced to Mick Fleetwood. Turned out he was just looking for a studio to record an up-and-coming Fleetwood Mac album with, at that time, Bob Welch. We parted company. Bob Welch, I guess, within a matter of weeks, decided to leave the band, and I get this call from Mick Fleetwood saying, "Hi, remember me, Mick Fleetwood?" "Yeah." "How would you like to join Fleetwood Mac? We're looking for a guitarist." And I took a beat, and I said, "Well, you know, I'd have to talk it over with someone, but I think basically, you know, if you're going to take me, you have to take my girlfriend too." And he said, "I'll get back to you on that." And I guess he asked Christine McVie, and she was okay. And we talked about it, and there were perhaps some pros and cons because there were things to give up that were more purely what we were doing and what our musical intentions were. But there was also an opportunity there. It was not defined. We just threw the dice and said, "Yeah, let's give it a shot," you know. And it preempted any further Buckingham Nicks, you know, progress. But that was the trade-off we made, you know.
And not a bad deal for Fleetwood Mac that the +1 throw-in is Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, that turned out okay too. Yeah.
God. So one of the most interesting aspects of Fleetwood Mac to me is the group dynamic. Mick, John, and Christy have a history. They go back. They invite you and Stevie into sort of their band. How long before it felt like a unit as opposed to sort of separate factions? Was it instantaneous or was it sort of an evolution?
Well, you know, it's interesting. We went into rehearsal before recording that first album, and it became very clear to me a couple of things. One was that these three people desperately needed a musical leader and probably hadn't had a very strong one in a good long time. And I knew I could do that job, pushy guy that I am. But I also felt that there was this intangible synergy that we had. You know, because on paper you look at these five people, you look at Stevie and me, and it didn't look like, on paper at least, a group of people that belonged in the same band together, if you will. But somehow it became very apparent right away as we started to interact musically in rehearsal that there was this synergy that added up to something greater than the sum of the parts. It was not something you could even analyze very well. It was a chemistry. It was something transcendent. And so I think that buoyed the whole idea of optimism and possibility for us very early on, before we ever set foot in the studio.
So you said you joined the band in 1975, and you record and release the album Fleetwood Mac, also known as the White Album. And one of the most, and the album didn't hit right away. So this album contained 3 top 20 singles, not instantaneous: Over My Head, Say You Love Me, and Rhiannon, which was a Buckingham Nicks tune, wasn't it? That you brought to that. But the album didn't hit right away. It took a lot of promotion. What are sort of, you know, as you said, a great band makes each individual band member better. How did your songwriting adjust from being, you know, you and Stevie and Buckingham Nicks to now being part of a larger group? Did it adjust, or did you just bring your talents?
Well, I don't think my songwriting really adjusted per se. It was more the approach to music making. You know, if you look at the Buckingham Nicks album, it really is very strongly informed by orchestral guitar playing, acoustic especially. And that was something that was important to me, and it was something that needed to be pared back in the context of Fleetwood Mac. They had a pre-existing sound because John had a bass sound, Christine had a very full keyboard sound, and mixed drums were quite fat as well. And so the space that was available for me to do what I would have done, and the amount of ground I would have covered on a single guitar part became, for the most part, irrelevant in that context. That was a big pill for me to swallow, a somewhat bitter pill, but you know, these are the choices you make, and you have to sort of look at it as just one of the compromises that needs to be made if you're going to call yourself a band member. So I did that. I had to even change the kind of guitar that I was using because the guitar did not fit in with the pre-existing sound. So there were things having more to do with the guitar that needed to be adjusted, and I don't want to say compromised, but you know, altered to fit. And there was a certain amount, perhaps, that was given up in that process.
So this album, like I said, it launched 3 singles in the top 20. It ultimately sold more than 5 million copies. But most importantly, it launches Fleetwood Mac and you as stars in pop music and sets the stage for your next album, which is Rumours in 1977. So Rumours is released, and pretty quickly it becomes a massive album, a juggernaut, both commercially and critically. It contained 4 top 10 songs: Go Your Own Way, Dreams, Don't Stop, and You Make Love and Fun. It was #1 for 31 straight weeks. It's just crazy. And wins album of the year, the Grammy for Album of the Year. So you're 28, you're the leader of the biggest band in the world at that point. Are you prepared for what that brings? And give us a glimpse into what life was like inside the band at that time.
Well, you know, you've got to look at what Rumours was, what drove the music, what drove the subject matter, what drove us as individuals to, you know, complete that particular project, to, if you will, follow our destiny. You had 2 couples who were breaking up or who had already broken. John and Christine McVie had already broken up when we began recording Rumours. Stevie and I were in the process of breaking up. And probably you can say that success that we had achieved up to that point was very much the catalyst for those breakups. So here we are in the studio. We're up in Sausalito. Now, normally if you just want to isolate, say, Stevie and myself, normally when you are in a breakup, you create distance, you create time to somehow achieve closure. And of course, we didn't have the luxury to do that. We had to kind of live in sort of collective states of denial, if you will. We had to kind of say, well, we got this set of emotional challenges and perhaps painful subjects and feelings that exist in this room, but we've got to kind of seal them off in one corner of the room so we can get on with what needs to be done. You know, there were choices that needed to be made. I didn't always feel in that context that I, as producer of that album, I didn't come in every day wanting to do the best possible thing for Stevie, but the professional thing to do was to rise above that. So I think for the most part we did. I feel that I did. I think we all did as individuals in a situation which was less than ideal in terms of what our personal lives were at that time. And I think what you have to say about Rumours is that there's a point at which the appeal of it and to some degree the success of it was really about that as much as it was about the music. Certainly the music was informed by the strength and perhaps the heroicism, if you want to think of it that way, that allowed us to fulfill that destiny under somewhat trying personal conditions. but there was also the appeal of this sort of musical soap opera that really was about our personal lives. They were kind of laid bare for everyone to see, and people were not only investing in the music, they were investing in us as people because they knew that the songs were true dialogues from one member to the other, from three different writers, back and forth. And so that created an empathy, I think, with the listener, and it made such an authentic thing for everyone to latch onto, and so many levels for people to invest in that had to do with that. So again, I think at some point that it detached from the music purely and became about all these other things as well.
Well, you think about that, we advise people, don't go into business with family and close friends or, girlfriends or boyfriends, and that wasn't a choice for you. You already had a band that was wildly successful. But think about this. Not only do you work with the person almost every moment of your professional career, in the studio, recording, touring, but that person is standing 10 feet away from you, writing songs about you and you about her, that not only do you sing and harmonize, you provide the guitar part for it. So a lot has been written about your relationship with Stevie and the songs that you wrote and she wrote to you. You wrote Go Your Own Way. She writes Dreams and Silver Springs. I just have the lyrics from Dreams, the first verse of Dreams. Can you put that up there? Well, okay, we'll listen to it a little. That's okay. We don't have to listen to it. We're sort of short on time. But she brings this into the studio. She writes this and brings this in. How do you receive that? Reading about that, you wrote about loneliness. She writes about loneliness. For 20-something-year-olds, there's just seems a lot of pain and anguish. How do you receive that, and what's it like in the studio when Stevie brings that in and sings it? Does the rest of the band just look at the ground and avoid eye contact?
Well, no, I think that we recognized the uniqueness of this position we found ourselves in. First of all, how many bands have two couples to begin with?
Two former
out
couples.
Of 5 people. And so, I think we somehow were able to be philosophical about it. You don't dwell on any of that too much. I think subject matter-wise, we dwelled on what might have been points of view, dialogues back and forth, much less than the audience did. I think we were more concerned with the structure and, just the whole construction of what needed to be done on a day-to-day basis. Like doing a film, you may not necessarily even be that aware of the dialogue per se at any given moment. There's so many other things to worry about.
So, reading reviews at the time about Rumours, one music critic commented, this is a quote, "What distinguishes Rumours, what makes it art, is the contradiction between its cheerful surface and its anguished heart. Here is a radio-friendly record about anger, recrimination, and loss." I think what you're saying is that is what makes Rumours so superb. And the larger question is, does great art take great pain?
Oh, well, it certainly... I think what you could say about that is going because if you follow the adage, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think you have to assume that at the very least, having painful experiences will broaden your emotional landscape and allow you to create more authentic art or art of more depth. I don't think you necessarily have to suffer in order to make effective art, though. No, I wouldn't say that.
But great emotion and great authenticity certainly make that.
Well, yeah, I think you need to experience some of the things, and certainly as we continued through the next few years, we probably all shared things together as a band that, we never shared with anybody else. So, kind of a unique thing.
Yeah, it's as you said. I don't know if there, I don't know if there's a band with more internal relationships and heartache and drama. As we talked about it backstage. It's if it ever gets made, it's going to be a great movie. It's going to be a great movie, and there are certainly people that want to write it. Speaking of love and relationships, and I'm going to go a little bit out of order. You wrote a beautiful song 20 years ago. So, I'm sorry, 20 years after Rumours in 1997. It wasn't released as a single, but it really is one of those songs that stands the test of time. And I don't think you play it acoustically very often. And
Are you sensing the setup again?
but
you wouldn't be talking about Bleed to Love Her, would you?
I would.
Well, I do play that. We did play that song for quite a while in Fleetwood Mac, and then I almost invariably play it in solo shows. But yes, it has been sort of laying a bit dormant for a while.
You think about it, there's just not many bands or songwriters that are still writing great songs. Not good songs, not their old songs, but great songs 20 or 30 years after sort of the zenith of their careers. And you and Fleetwood Mac still write great songs, and this is one of them. So if you would treat us to a little bit of Bleed to Love Her, we'd be thrilled.
Now, I have to give you a slight disclaimer because David here, some of these things that we're going to be doing got sprung on me at the last minute. So, but I can see a method to his, he figured if he told me everything he was thinking of, maybe I wouldn't have showed up. Something like that. So we'll see. I don't know if we can get through this whole thing, but because I haven't actually played this in quite some time. Oh, he's going to leave. Oh, okay. Okay. Wish me luck. Okay. She steals away, then she reaches out to kiss me, and how she takes my breath away, pretending that she don't miss me. Oh, I would bleed to love her. Oh, bleed to love her. I would bleed to love her. Once again she calls to me, then she vanishes in thin air, and how she takes my breath away, pretending that she's not there. Oh, I would bleed to love her. Ah, bleed to love her. Oh, I would bleed to love her. 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 Thank you. Thanks a lot. There you go.
I will never interrupt you while you were playing. That is such, I don't know how we got,
Make you happy.
I don't know how we got so lucky. I really don't. This is just a great way to end the year, so thank you again.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
really nice. So let's shift to 1979, where,
Uh-oh.
not for us, more for you. The follow-up from Rumours. So Rumours is a huge worldwide success. You've got clout, you've got cachet, you've got power with the record companies. You set about making a very different recording and an album. It cost $1 million to make, which at the time I think was the most expensive record of all time, and 13 months to record. The New York Times, not me, the New York Times said recently, quote, that Tusk was a deliberate act of crazy defiance, close quote.
That is true.
So the public and the record company, you know, they wanted Rumours too, but Tusk was a very different album. And when it didn't sell like Rumours, and nothing could, nothing could, you as the director took the blame. How did you deal with the public's reception for the Tusk album, and what did you learn about yourself during that time?
Well, I mean, first of all, I did bear the responsibility or take the blame from the band in a certain context, because what happened was that, well, you have to sort of backtrack to the thought process behind it. Rumours, again, I talked about it detaching from the music and becoming a little bit more about the musical soap opera, which was true. Also, though, and perhaps even more significantly, on a level which you could feel a bit ambivalent about, was that at some point Rumours detached. The success of Rumours stopped being about the music and began being about the success. So the phenomenon became about the phenomenon at some point. And this is kind of a dangerous Michael Jackson territory that you find yourself in, where there is a kind of an edict, I think, that runs through business in general, and certainly did run through the record business at that time, which is something like this: if it works, run it into the ground, and then eventually move on. And that's probably not a bad thing to follow from a business standpoint only. But if you are aspiring to be an artist, as I was, even more so in the face of what Rumours, there was an upside from Rumours in terms of what it allowed us to do, in terms of what it brought in financially, in terms of the doors it opened. But there was also a downside in terms of an external world which was now trying to put a set of labels on us and get us to basically adhere to those labels for business reasons only. And, you know, yes, you can make a case for saying perhaps we could have brought it along more gradually, but in the context of what Rumours had been, and, you know, behind the scenes, I had been working on some new ways of approaching recording that I thought were very interesting and were yielding some far different results, far more to the left, to be sure. Now, again, to get back to the blame, which is what I started off responding to, the band was initially a bit skeptical of the change-up, but as that year or so went along, they became quite enchanted with what was happening and were quite drawn in. Now, this is the important thing. They only revised that opinion of things when, as you said, it didn't sell 16 million albums. So, and it was a double album. And as you also very aptly pointed out, Rumours was a moment in time, nothing would have sold 16 million albums again. That was, so, you can try. But what happens with artists, I think, sometimes, or people who start off doing things for the right reasons, is that you slowly start to paint yourself into a corner by doing what people outside of the creative world are asking you to do. And I think that's antithetical to being an artist. So yes, I'll take the blame or the credit depending on your point of view, yes? And again, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when Warner Brothers first put Tusk on in their boardroom on Thursday and listened to this thing, and we were going, holy shit. Because clearly it was not what they wanted, and to some degree it was not what the audience, well, I shouldn't say it wasn't what the audience wanted, but it was not what anyone expected. And that, in my mind, that was part of the beauty of it. And that was, indeed, as the New York Times pointed out, a somewhat deliberate thing. So I think what you have to say for me about Tusk is that it is my favorite album of all these albums because of the reason it was done. And it started me down the path I still try to aspire to, which is to be an artist and not just a craftsman who's doing business. And what can you say?
Well, for most people here, it's our favorite album as well, for other reasons. So take us back to the recording of the greatest song of all time, Tusk. It's a fact. Look it up. Where did the beat come from, and who said we need a marching band?
Well, you probably have to credit Mick with both of those things. I mean, I had the song, and Mick is he's like an animal in the jungle sometimes, and that's what we love about him. If I'm a refined primitive, he's an unrefined primitive. In more ways than one. and yet a sublime thinker and a sublime feeler and a poetic soul, to be sure. And so I think the way we got that beat was he wanted to play something that had a kind of a jungle roll to it, but we wanted it to be ultra hypnotic. And so back in the day before you could loop things digitally, you had to do it in some sort of analog fashion. And the way we did that was to take 2-inch tape, which was what 24-track was on back then, and make a piece of tape that probably ran the length of this stage and, edited into itself. And then we found some way to sort of spool it on one end of the room and ran it through the machine so it would just play endlessly over and over again. And that was the drums for Tusk. And the marching band idea, again, was Mick's. We'd pretty much cut the whole track, and Mick said, you know, this would be great with like some, I think he was thinking, you know, John Philip Sousa or something, because it did have this kind of march time to it, even though it was a jungle thing as well. And how Dr. Bartner got into the picture, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing Mick once again. And as we all know, that was just a very sublime marriage of two completely different worlds, you know. Putting that and over what we had, again, probably didn't make a whole lot of sense on paper, but it worked. It was great.
And we played a little bit of the clip from one of the first music videos was Tusk, and showed the audience the band recording it. Do you have a short memory that you could share with us? They rented Dodger Stadium for a band.
We got to blame Mick for that one too, because Mick liked to think big, you know. So, I mean, clearly it was a beautiful place to do the filming. Perhaps were one to speak to one's accountant, there might have been a suggestion of an alternative that might have been perhaps more cost efficient, or maybe we got the thing for free. I don't really know. I never asked the hard questions back then.
So I wasn't there. It was before my time. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't there, but...
Yeah, you weren't born yet, right?
Yeah. I keep telling myself that. I wasn't there, so I don't... But we searched and found something from the archive. So my favorite moment from the Tusk video, or from the Tusk day at Dodger Stadium, is the reason why I will always like Stevie Nicks. Can you play this clip and make sure it's loud enough for people to hear?
Who are we to deserve the USC band to play for us, you know?
Stevie, don't be so humble.
Well, no, but I mean, really, you know, that's a lot of people playing that song.
They like the
Who are we to deserve the USC band to play for us? One of the greatest quotes of all time. And so the New York Times article that we talked about actually was a recent article that did say the genius of Tusk and reflected on that, and that it just didn't meet the preconceived expectations, but in itself, it's a great double album. And Tusk set the record for, the unofficial record for the highest number of musicians to ever perform on a single record. And it earned...
I didn't know that.
And it earned the USC marching band the distinction of the only collegiate marching band to have a platinum record. That should go right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's, I had to negotiate that off Bartner's wall today. That was not easy.
That must have been tough.
Yeah. So Tusk has, and it went on to sell, more than 1 million copies and, a bunch of records for USC and distinctions. So Tusk has been played at every USC football game, concert, and athletic event since 1980. You have given us a piece of music history and will always be part of the Trojan family. Thank you for doing it. All right, we're going to skip ahead. 1987, after Rumours, you went your own way.
That's true. We did a couple of more albums, but what you have to understand is that after Tusk, what came down was a kind of this rule from the band that was like, well, we're not going to follow that process that we were doing on Tusk anymore. So, as a producer, or even just it was a difficult thing to sort of arbitrarily backtrack and try to sort of, throw yourself back into a place that you had been, that you weren't in anymore. And that began probably had everyone in the band wanted to continue down the road that expressed more the left side of the palette, as Tusk had done, there would have been no need for me to do solo work. Because in a weird way, Tusk was the very same process and represented the same set of aspirations as the solo work does. And the solo work is more esoteric. It is more tapping into the left side of my palette, and consequently is going to inherently reach a fewer number of people. And that's just, it's nice to have both, obviously. One would not exist without the other. But so that became kind of a difficult thing for me in the studio. So we did Mirage, and then we did Tango in the Night. And by the time we got done with Tango in the Night, really, it was just, people were just, whatever we thought we had to be in order to be rock and roll in the 70s, had sort of hit critical mass, shall we say. And so it became very difficult to get things done. It was a pretty chaotic environment to exist in, and that's really why I took off. I produced the Tango in the Night album. We did it at my house. I was quite proud of the result, but it was a very difficult album to get through. And knowing that the road it tends to be like about ×5 what the studio is, I just thought it was time for me to take a little breather, and that's what I did.
And so in 1987, you left the band. And by the way, Fleetwood Mac continued. Fleetwood Mac had different iterations and different members. And Fleetwood Mac, when it continued, they had to hire 3 guitarists at the same time just to play the parts that Lindsey played by himself. If you were to look at, yes. And if you look at put up the graph.
Thank you for pointing that out, too.
If you look, here is the membership timeline of Fleetwood Mac. If you look at it, so the 5 members from Rumours are circled, but you can see the comings and goings of the band, and it hasn't been consistent. In 1992, it's sort of like a musical Rubik's Cube up there. Yes. And you can see where the albums were, and then you see the bright lines where a bunch of people left and took time off. But in 1992, Bill Clinton is running for president, and he uses Don't Stop as his campaign theme song. And when he wins the presidency, he requested that the band perform at his inauguration in 1993. So you guys get together for pretty much that only concert. It's not until 1997 when the 5 members that we're talking about now reunite for a tour and recorded the live album, The Dance, which spawned, 3 hits. Landslide was released as a single, The Chain, and Silver Springs. And I think we got a second platinum album for that one because we played the live version of that in 97. So 18 years later, you're still going strong with Fleetwood Mac. What drives and inspires you now? What has changed in your life that makes you a better artist?
Well, again, I think having the kind of success that we had on a commercial level and seeing what it was and what it was not early on has helped me to aspire to continue to grow on my own terms. So that's the base of everything, and at this point in one's life, when your the preconceptions people may or may not have, most people have about you, don't necessarily fit with the content. If someone were to really pay attention to what you've done, it doesn't fit with the preconceptions. And as you get to a certain point in your life, it becomes less relevant what kind of business you're doing. It's really just the process of creating and making something worthwhile. And if 1,000 people hear it, that's fine, as opposed to 15,000 people or whatever you're playing for with Fleetwood Mac. That becomes a non-criteria for me, So there's that. which, and I've sort of come to call Fleetwood Mac the big machine and call the other thing the small machine, and those two work in tandem. I think the small machine is where I continue to grow as an artist, and can then bring back that vitality into the larger situation, which is why you see me jumping around on stage in a very age and appropriate way.
Well, that's what astounded me, and as I mentioned, to keep writing great songs when a lot of bands from the 70s and 80s are pretty much purely nostalgia. They play their hits, which we all want to hear, but they're not producing new stuff. And in terms of just pure fitness and energy, they play 2.5 hours, maybe a little bit longer. He doesn't leave the stage once. Everybody else takes a little bit of a break. You do not leave. So not only do you, athletically you're fit. I met you afterwards, and you weren't even out of breath. So
Well, see, everyone else has to go take pee breaks. and you may not know this. This is why the Eagles have an intermission. Now, I've worked that through. I have a catheter. No.
Oh, that's so bad. That's so bad. All right, this is going to be our last topic, and then my students and some USC students will ask some questions. But I want to spend a couple minutes talking about the power of music and why do we crave and enjoy music so much on a primal level. It's the only art form that immediately changes your mood. It's, we mere mortals want to feel what it's like to feel that. As someone who hasn't played an instrument, who hasn't played with a band, I don't know if we'll ever get that high. And so I don't know if you can convey that in words, and I'd like you to try. It's like, what is it about music? Like everything else in life, I think you can trace to like our most primitive needs, our needs to survive, our needs to reproduce, have a family, and then sort of continue society. In every culture, no matter how primitive, there is music. What is it that is in us that makes us want to not just play it, I get that, but for us to listen to it? What is it about music?
It's such a profound question. It's one of those things that just by being someone who is as close as I am to the process and to the creation and the dissemination of music, it doesn't make me any more qualified necessarily to have an insightful answer to that. And I'm not sure that I know. Other than, if music has certain qualities, it possesses beauty in a way which is perhaps the presentation of that other art forms have as well, but I think music presents it in the most visceral way. That's the only thing I can think of, really.
Well, the beauty of it is that you don't have to explain it because you feel it and you live it and you get to live that life. And so if you could allow us to experience, you feel it. This is not what you think. This is legit.
Oh, yes, it is.
But we all want to know what it feels like and how it feels when music courses through your body, to be moved and hypnotized. And you see it when great artists play. You see it when, Hendrix is playing Purple Haze. You see it when it takes over Stevie Wonder on Superstition. And watching you in concert play Big Love, you can see it transform you. Can you introduce us to this song and take us to that place you go?
I can. If you really want me to do Big Love, that's one I don't think I can do sitting down.
No,
though.
you have to stand up. You have to stand up.
All right. This song does represent, I think one of the things you try to do as an artist is keep refining and looking for your center. Now, this song began as an ensemble piece. It was the first single from that album, Tango in the Night, but it was the whole band. But it became sort of a template for many songs I've tried to do that are really getting back to kind of what I was referring to before, where the guitar is doing one guitar or one or two doing the work of a whole track, and that's sort of been a road back that I've taken. So I guess the song is really about transition for me. So we'll see where this goes. Looking out for love in a night so still. Oh, how build you a kingdom in that house on the hill. Looking out for love. Big, big love. You said that you love me, that you always will. Oh, you picked me to keep you in that house on the hill, looking out for love. Big, big love.
I have nothing to say. Students, that was just exceeded everything I ever thought would happen. So thank you for that. Students, let's ask some questions for Lindsey Buckingham. Students, come on up. Come on up. All right. Start us off.
Hi, thank you for coming. This was a great show. Well, I had a question. So mainstream music has obviously changed a lot since when you started, and you have artists like Drake or deadmau5 or Taylor Swift seem to be really identifying with our generation. And do you think artists like this are going, or like I can't really imagine myself coming here when I'm your age and maybe seeing Taylor Swift sitting up on this chair and someone interviewing them. Do you think artists today are going to be able to have that same type of connection with their fans for as long as you've been able to do it?
Am I there? You know, it depends on who you cite, you know. I actually like Taylor Swift. I'm not so much
Maybe that was a bad example.
You know, I mean, I liked her last album a little more, but I admire what she's been able to do on some levels. But I mean, there are, you know, one of the great things now, even though the model of the large record company is completely broken, and things, the marketing part of things, the decision making, the nurturing that used to come from companies from the bottom up, everything's from the top down now, from the boardroom. You know, people don't take the risks. People on labels don't have the autonomy. But what you've got is probably half the people you hear on like All Nation or some satellite stations who are making their albums on their laptop in their bedroom. And that's great. Because, you know, then you get something like Sylvan Esso or... I mean, there's a ton of really good people out there, you know. I don't think music is necessarily any less vital. I think it's a little harder to kind of chart how it interfaces with the sociology of things. You know, when I was a kid and Elvis Presley broke through to a middle-class white audience, it was a sociological phenomenon that lasted through the Beatles. It even lasted a little bit through Fleetwood Mac, even though we were basically doing an imitation of something that had already been done better, perhaps. But so, you know, I think there's a lot of beauty out there. You know, finding it is a little bit, the discipline to do that is a little bit different, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Lindsey, thank you so much for being here. I was sweating during the outro of that last song. You really had me going. One thing I just want to ask you.
Go over here so I can hear you better. So yeah.
One thing I just want to ask you when it comes to the writing process, what inspires you for songs? And usually, is it lyrics first, and then you'll craft the melody around something you've written, or is it always you'll write the music and then the lyrics follow afterwards?
Well, it's different. Stevie writes. She types her lyrics out and puts them in a drawer, and maybe she'll write a melody later, or maybe she'll give it to somebody else to write a melody. So for her, it's the lyric. There's a lot of strength in that on a certain rhythmic level, you know. I'm the opposite. I come up with you know, if I showed you the number of voice memos I have on my phone with rough ideas yet to be explored. So I start with a melody. Now, when I work on songs now, it's kind of like painting, because I'll go down to my studio and I'll have a rough idea of something, and I'll start to put things down on tape. And the song, it's like painting with a canvas. You try instruments, you know, the thing takes on a life of its own and pulls you off in different directions that you might not have expected to go. It's a very meditative kind of one-on-one thing you have. And so, you know, everyone's different. That's just the way I do it. I don't even consider myself to be a skilled writer in the sense that Burt Bacharach or someone is a great writer of songs. You know, I'm sort of a, I don't know.
You're great. You're great. You're great.
I'm a no, I'm a stylist, you know.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much again for coming. He took my question, so I have a different question to ask. Okay. But I'm just curious how it was infusing so much of your emotion from your emotional breakup with Stevie into Go Your Own Way, and what that process was like.
Say that again. I'm
Just
sorry.
how it was infusing so much emotion into your songwriting and able to correctly portray those emotions in the song.
Well, again, I think we just we were living through that, So putting the emotion into the song was probably just a form of therapy, and I honestly don't think again that we were as in touch with how much of those songs at the time were dialogues back and forth. I think we thought of them as slightly more generic lyrics, That was part of the denial,
Cool. I'm also a songwriter, and your band has had a huge influence on my own writing. And I brought my album with me just to show you how big of an influence your songs and your music still have on
I know
young
that's
artists
really
today.
your
So I just
parents'
wanted to
album.
Show you.
Right? No.
Oh my gosh! Thank you.
This will not
Oh my
start-
God.
What's your name? What's your name?
Emily.
Emily.
Thank
Emily.
you so much.
This is not a precedent for the rest of you. There are no selfies.
Thank you so
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Lindsey. Thank you so much for
You're-
that
you're so welcome.
incredibly generous performance. I just had a question. When you're feeling off center, what do you do to kind of get back to yourself?
Well, I think that unlike the old days, it's interesting. I saw a lot of people back in the good old days, if you want to call it that, who were trying to maintain relationships, several who were trying to be good spouses or good parents, and were leading lives that were counterintuitive to that set of goals, shall we say. And so a lot of people kind of screwed up things that they had going. I held off and was very, very lucky to meet my wife at a point when all that other garbage was out of the way. And so I think when I'm looking for more of a center, I look to my wife and my children.
Thank you.
Hi, Lindsey.
Hi.
This is a real treat. This is pretty incredible to bring our whole community together, so thanks for being here. I had a question, and it relates to an experience I had recently. I went to a festival recently and saw a set done by Jack White, and he had a beautiful quote that he ended his set with, and he reinforced the fact that music is sacred, that music is sacred, that music is sacred.
You went to Coachella.
I did. You knew. My question is for you, have you experienced a moment of just sheer beauty, either in performance and writing? Where did that happen? And beyond that, perhaps a little more generally, do you hope to leave a legacy? Obviously you have, but did you ever intend to? And if you leave one, what are you most proud of?
Well, the funny thing was that I was never very goal-driven. When Stevie and I decided it was time to move to LA, it was her idea. I would have just stayed up in Northern California probably. And I was never that ambitious. I was focused on the craft that I was interested in, but I wasn't necessarily tying it to success of any kind other than my own definition of success. Right. So I think you have to look at everything as if you've been able to get from point A to point B to point C all the way down the line, as long as I've been doing what I'm doing and even halfway remember who you are and halfway care about what I think it's important to care about as a musician or as an artist, and halfway remember why you got into it in the first place. That's success, and that would make me happy if I get to the end and I feel that I've accomplished that.
Thank you.
Couple more. Couple more. We have time for a couple more. We're not going to get to them all. We got such a late start, but keep going.
Thank you so much for
I
being
know he wants
here.
to talk to you.
It's a rather quick question, not as serious. So I kind of want to write this Fleetwood Mac movie. So my question for you is, when you were making your first album, it was John and Christine were dating, you and Stevie Nicks were dating. How awkward was it to have Mick Fleetwood as the fifth wheel?
To have Mick Fleetwood as what?
How awkward was it to have Mick Fleetwood as the fifth wheel? Did you guys go on
as the
double
fifth
dates
wheel.
without him?
Well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't awkward for me. I think it was awkward for him. You know, he had his own challenges with his wife too, even though she wasn't in the band. But yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, there was this sort of symmetry of these two couples, and then there was this guy. But you know. But also Mick was sort of at that time, especially, kind of the big daddy. He was the guy who was seemed to have the insights. It was his intuition that led him to ask, well, me to join, and ultimately both of us. You know, and he's a very intuitive guy, and. So, you know, I think he always kind of stood apart in that way, looking at everybody, hopefully looking after everybody a little bit, or at least trying to, even when he didn't. You know, he always, his heart, he's got the biggest heart, you know, Mick does.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, Lindsey.
Hey.
You're the man. So you mentioned earlier how, you know, you aspired and obviously succeeded in being an artist, not a craftsman involved in business. And I'm just wondering, how did you build the courage to resist, you know, what everybody was telling you on the outside, you know, everybody who wasn't involved in the creative process? And, you know, how did you get past everything that they said and truly become your own self as an artist?
That's a very good question. I must have had a lot of issues.
Yeah, right?
No, I mean, I think in my own strange way that I did have something to prove, you know. By that time, you know, I was looking for my place still, you know. I think to some degree Mick had his place. Stevie had kind of, you know, found her kind of witchy image, which a lot of people, it was very easy for people to gravitate towards that and to understand that. And I think part of it was just feeling that there was a need to keep my head above water. You know, it was, part of it was just a survival thing, and the other part of it was just the idealism, I think, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One more, last question.
Hey, Lindsey. My name's Taylor. I'm a singer-guitarist. I'm in front of Paul Fishkins. And I wanted to say before I ask my question that I portray you in a Fleetwood Mac tribute show that's quite popular. And we are known not only for musical accuracy, but the characterizations of mannerisms and personalities.
Well, you are wearing my shirt.
Yeah. But I just wanted to say that absorbing your body of work has added so much depth to my own vocabulary as an artist, and it's been so challenging and rewarding, and I want to thank you for that. And my question is, right, so much has been said over the years about your arranging and producing in regards to bolstering Stevie's songs, but less has been revealed about your working relationship with Christine, and especially with her back in the band now, but also before. Could you take us through your process of getting a Christine demo and what you know, how you go to town sort of arranging her music in particular?
Well, I mean, I don't think the two applications are that dissimilar. There may be things that Stevie needed that Christine didn't need, and vice versa. And it's hard for me to really quantify that or you know, say I did this specifically for one versus the other. But I think there's just an instinctual kind of imagination to take something it's much easier to do it for other people than for yourself because you've got the objectivity, that you don't have about your own stuff. So I think probably that's, I'm better at that than I am at writing for myself. And it's just, these things come to you. And again, I was talking earlier about when we first started rehearsing, before we cut the very first album, it was obvious to me that, I was already doing that for Stevie, but it was obvious to me that Christine as a writer needed pretty much that same thing. And that was a defining moment for being able to sort of realize that that was going to be an important contribution that I'd be able to give the band.
Was it easier for Christine to welcome that because you didn't have the romantic baggage?
Not back in the day. If you cut to the present, yes. In fact, Christine came over and we started working on some new material, and she had some rough ideas, and then I gave her some tracks that I had that were just didn't have melody, and she wrote over those, and it was actually better than ever. So that thing, but it does help that somebody wants you to do it and trusts you to do it, for sure.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
You've been so generous with your time. I know we got started a little late. Thank you so much for being generous. Thanks for the music. Thanks for the advice. I know my class could sit here and last. And we got one more question. One more question. If we could have one more person come up here and give us a question. Not from the audience, but just one more.
Uh-oh.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
It's not game day.
Not yet.
Is this on?
Yes.
Hey, Lindsey. My name's Eddie. I'm
Eddie.
in the drumline here at the
How are
Spirit
you?
of Troy.
I'm good. Looking good.
Thank you.
You're scaring me.
Well, my question to you is, can you and I play Tusk?
You got it. Well, are you ready? The shades are that really pulls the whole thing together. All right. Should I start? I guess I should, right? Okay. Why don't you ask him if he's gonna stay? Why don't you ask him if he's gone away? Why don't you tell me what's going on? Why don't you tell me who's on the phone? Why don't you tell me what's going on? Why don't you tell me the latest on this road? But don't say that you love me. Just tell me that you want me. Don't say that you love me.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Unbelievable. That's a band. That's a band. Woo! That is a band. You have seen something that has never been seen before and may not be seen again to play that song. We've got something we want to do to thank Lindsey for being so generous with us. So I'd like to invite up my co-director, Dr. Helena Ilirenko, to the podium. Dr. Helena Ilirenko. Got it? You can stay there. You want to go over there? Here you go.
Thank you so much for coming to USC and sharing your life and your music, your art with us. We don't often get rock stars at the business school. The Grive Center logo is a circle of dots with one dot standing out from the crowd. That dot is the entrepreneur who marches to the beat of his own drum, in your case, your guitar. On behalf of the Grive Center and the Marshall School of Business and USC, we would like to recognize your contributions to music and to USC with this Music Entrepreneur Award.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay here. Stay here. Where's the photographer? Come on out. Come on out. Come on out. You got it? Step forward. Step forward here so everyone can see you. Come on out. Everyone can see you here. Come on out. Come on out. This on? Please turn this on for Dr. Bartner.
Let's hear it for Lindsey Buckingham. No, come on. Lindsey and Fleetwood Mac wrote an absolutely great song for the University of Southern California. Forget the fact that you made me famous. You made this band famous. It is only fitting that at this time we make Lindsey an honorary member of the Trojan Marching Band.
In the middle. It's been. Do you want to say anything? It's been a great night. It's been a great night. We'll never forget this. Congratulations, seniors. Thanks to Ben. Thanks to Dr. Bartner of our band. Let's hear it for Dr. Bartner. And please, let's give a Trojan thank you to the one, the only, Lindsey Buckingham. You done? Good night. Good night. We'll see you next time. Fight on.